Alright, the following is going to be a walkthrough that may clear up some confusion, hopefully. For you that are watching this that were part of the tutorial class today during lunch, this will be pretty much the same thing you have already seen. Alright, so with this we're going to associate programming with something very simple. A secretary as part of a business, okay? And you know, you might be familiar with some things that secretaries do, and we're going to say that this secretary only really does one thing. She prepares packets that are composed of a cover sheet and a marketing report. Okay, so let's take a look. Alright, and here we see exactly what I said. The job of the secretary at this company is combining a market report with a cover page. These are both provided to her from different people or from the same person. Okay, and we're going to go with this analogy as if this person who gives her one will give her both. Okay, so we're going to have two boxes on her desk, and when I'm designing the secretary, what we're doing here is we're just defining the responsibilities of a secretary. Okay, we're just outlining what she can do. Okay, the actions that we can ask her to do or tell her to do, and the things that she will be required to have in order to do those tasks. And in this instance, there's only one task we're asking her to do. So we're going to define that task and the types of things that she's going to need in order to do that. Alright, so we give her two boxes on her desk. One of these boxes is going to be for the market reports, and the other is going to be for the cover pages. Alright, so here we have our boxes. Okay, the secretary, and this is what we're essentially doing, is we're designing the training regiment for a person who's going to be hired in this position. The secretary is going to be trained so that when she's told a specific order, in this instance, compile a packet, she's going to say, okay, when someone tells me that, I'm going to take whatever is in the green box. I have two boxes. One is a green box and one is a blue box. I'm going to take whatever's in the green box and whatever is in the blue box and combine them together. Okay? And that's what she knows them as, the green box and the blue box. And as a matter of fact, she doesn't even care what's in them. The only thing that she's being trained to know is that I take what's in the green box and what's in the blue box, stack them together, staple them, and once I'm finished with that, I then take it and put it in a folder on my desk. That's all she does. Alright, she's going to be trained to take whatever is there, she's going to put it together and place it in a folder. Okay? And so she takes what's here and combines it with what's here and places it inside of here. Okay? So once this is done, this no longer exists. The box is still there, but the information is gone. The cover sheet's gone. The marketing report is gone. They've been combined and put into this folder. And the reason she puts it in the folder is so someone else is going to be expecting this information. Someone else is going to need access to this. So whenever they do, say, hey, secretary, of course they're not going to say that. Do you have that folder ready for me? Okay, and of course, if that's true, they'll be able to collect this folder. Alright. So anyone that tells the secretary to compile a packet, they're going to know that they have to give her the cover sheet and the marketing report, or she can't do her job. If you say, hey, I want you to compile a packet, but you don't give her the information, it's pointless. She can't actually do it. So in this instance, she actually needs these two things in order to be able to compile a packet. The action that she wants to do is compiling a packet. The information that she needs to do it are a marketing report and a cover sheet. If you don't provide those to her, she can't do that job. Okay? Alright, so whenever they come by, they don't actually look and see a green box and a blue box. They just know that the first box on her desk is where I put the cover sheet. And the second box that's on her desk is where I put the marketing report. The blue and green color scheme is her way of organizing things. They don't actually see the little green label or the little blue label or even the color scheme of the box. The only thing that they know is that this box I put the cover sheet in, and the next box I put the marketing report. You can think of them like mailboxes. It has a little slit, and they don't actually see what goes on behind the scenes. The only thing they know is in the first slit I put the cover sheet, in the second slit I put the marketing report. Alright. So let's say that with this designed, we're going to actually hire someone in this position now. We're going to hire someone named Anne. Anne is our new secretary. So we hired someone at this job. Her name is Anne. Now, you got to think of this in this way. This is a big corporation, or a big-ish company. There's going to be more than one secretary. Anne is our new one. Now, whenever we go and tell any secretary to be able to compile a packet, they can do it. That's one of the skill sets that's required. As a matter of fact, in this explanation, I guess, that's the only skill that they're required to have to be a secretary. But we can have 10, 20, 30, a million different secretaries. Okay? Secretary is just an outline of what one of these people is expected to be able to do. We can't actually tell secretary to do anything. It's just a job description. It's just expectations of a person hired in that position to be able to do, or expectations they should be able to do. Alright, so if we say to Anne, compile a packet please, well, she's going to say, well, I need those documents. What do you want me to compile a packet with? And you say, okay, the documents you need are in the boxes. The marketing report is in the second box. The cover sheet is in the first box. So she looks at the boxes after they've been passed and takes the document from the green box, whatever it is. It could be the wrong form. It doesn't matter. Her instructions are very specific. Take what's on the first box, staple it to the top of what's on the second box, put it in the folder. Alright, see, she places it in a folder on her desk, so whenever someone wants it, they can come and pick it up. And here we go. Here's the folder again. She takes what's in here, combines it with what's here, puts it over here. Whenever someone on the outside walks by her desk, they don't see the green and the blue, they see box 1 and box 2. Okay? So when someone needs the file, so they say, okay, well, I gave this information to the secretary. So I'm going to, reasonably expect that 5-10 minutes later that the folder will be prepared. Okay? And we can assume that she only has one folder on her desk at a time. She only has one cover sheet, only has one marketing report, and then only one folder. Okay? So you don't have to worry about, well, what if there's 20 different documents? And don't worry about that. It's beyond the scope of this. Alright. So the folder that Anne has is the one that they need every time. Because they say, okay, she has a folder and I need that folder. The one that she has is the one that they need. Okay? So they know what they need. They need a folder. Okay, so they say, well, if I need a folder, I'm going to need some place to put it. So, make some space on my desk, make sure I don't have anything in my hands so I can be able to hold that folder. Okay? So they know when they go to get a folder from a secretary, what's information that they need to be able to do that? They need to know, well, if there's 25 different secretaries, they need to know which secretary that they're going to retrieve the folder from. It's common sense. If I tell you, sit in that chair, what's your question? Which chair? There's 10 here. All right. So in order to be able to go get a folder from a secretary, they need to know what secretary they're going to go get the folder from. Once they know the secretary to get the file from, in this case Anne, they can then carry out the action of getting the folder. Okay? And like I said, they can get Anne's folder. It's the one they need every single time. Okay? Alright, so this is a real world situation, easy to understand. I'm going to simulate this in Raptor and use the exact same terminology. So maybe it will clear up some things, some questions you may have. But first, the first thing that you should always do is map out your classes and your methods and fields for those classes, what you expect them to be able to do. And whenever you're thinking of mapping out some kind of method, you need to think, okay, well, is there any information that this method is going to need that it doesn't already have access to? If that answer is yes, then you're going to need to add some parameters. The parameters will be used to pass that information into that method that it needs to do the job it's designed to do. Alright, so let's map this out real fast. So first thing we say is we're going to have a secretary. Learn how to spell. Alright, and so what does the secretary do? Well, she is going to have one method, and that method is going to be compile a packet. And what does compile a packet do? Well, all this does is takes what's in the green box and adds it to the blue box. This is then stored in a folder. Well, since a folder, and this is going to be information that needs to be accessed from someone else, it needs to be permanent storage, because if we use this like a parameter, it's going to be instantly destroyed. So someone on the outside, or a coworker or a manager, wouldn't actually be able to get this information from the secretary because it's gone. So we're going to create permanent storage to store this information. So whenever the manager comes by, he can easily access that folder. Okay? So we can deduce then that the folder will be a field. Okay? And since the green box and the blue box are going to be information passed into this method from an outside source, we're going to use those as parameters. And the reason we can deduce that is when you tell the secretary to compile a packet, you need to give her the information in order to compile that packet from the information. She can't compile the packet with a cover sheet and a marketing report unless you give her the cover sheet and the marketing report. So obviously she doesn't have access to those until you give them to her. So we're going to use those as parameters. Okay? That's mapping out the secretary class. This is all the things that we need. Okay? So we can take this out and start throwing in some pseudocode. That just means fake code. Compile a packet is going to accept two parameters, add those parameters together, store them in the field folder. That's all it's going to do. Next class, we're going to map out manager. So what is a manager going to do? Well, obviously managers do a lot of things, but this particular manager does one thing and one thing only. He retrieves these packets from secretaries. Okay? So he retrieves packets from secretaries. That's all he does. So in order to retrieve information from secretary, he needs to know which secretary. Okay? And what else does he need? Well, he needs somewhere to store the folder he gets from the secretary. Alright? So he's also going to have a field for permanent storage in order to put that folder. Okay? His method is going to be retrieve packet. Retrieve packet, again, whenever I tell him to retrieve a packet, he needs to know the secretary to retrieve the packet from. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, and he will have one field to store the folder from the secretary. Okay, that's it. So let's map this out. So going back to our mapping, we're going to go to the UML, create two classes. One class is going to be the secretary. The other class will be the manager. What is it that the secretary needs? Well, it needs one method and one field. So we're going to make a constructor, even though we don't use it. Make it anyway. Our method is going to be compile a packet. What do we need for compile a packet? Do we need any parameters for compile a packet? Do we need to know information from outside of the secretary in order to do this job? Yes, we do. We need to know what is inside of the boxes. If we go back to this analogy and look, if I can find the boxes, there we go. Her job, whenever you tell her to compile a packet, is to take what's in this box and what's in this box and put them together and store them in a folder. So she needs to have these two boxes to receive these documents. She needs one for the cover page, one for the marketing report. So we will here provide these, and since we're going to assume that these marketing reports have a lot of words in them, we're just for clarity's sake, we're going to store them as strings. Remember that whenever you're making parameters, you have to say the type of information that this parameter is going to hold. We can assume that a marketing report and a cover sheet, we can think of them as strings for now. Even though the marketing report obviously will have a lot of numbers, we're just going to use them as strings. So we'll say our first box is our green box. Remember what type of information and the name that she will know this information by. She's going to look and see what's inside of the green box. Then she's going to look and see what's inside of the blue box, and then add those two things together. Alright, she also has one field. I'm going to look here and see what the field is. A folder. Alright, now since we're adding the blue box and the green box together in order to have our folder, well, if we're taking a string and adding a string to it, what does that produce? Well, in this instance, for basic programming, it's going to produce a string. A string plus a string gives you a string. Okay, so we're going to call this our folder of type string, and it will be public. And the reason it's public is because if it's not public and the manager comes by to find this folder and he can't see the folder, guess what? He can't actually pick up the folder if he can't see it. Okay, so we make it public. So that's it for designing the class for the secretary. The manager, go look at our diagram. The manager has one method, retrieve packet. When we tell him to retrieve a packet, he needs to know the name of the secretary he's going to retrieve the packet from. He's going to have one field to store the folder from the secretary. So we tell him retrieve the packet from so-and-so secretary. He goes to the secretary, gets her packet, her folder, and puts it inside of his permanent storage, his folder field. We're not going to call it that. We're going to make it a different name. Alright, constructor, method, field. Our field, we'll call this manager's folder. So the one on his desk. And since the information that's going to go inside of it is going to be a string, so let's make it a string. And the reason it's a string is because the secretary's folder is going to be a string. So we should make his a string as well. Alright, so inside of the method, what did we call it? Retrieve packet. Can't spell tonight for some reason. Alright, when we tell him, or tell the manager, he or she, hey, I need you to go to a secretary and get the folder. Okay, well, what does he need to be able to do this command? Well, he needs to know, well, which secretary. So we're going to provide him with a secretary. So oh God, come on, Chris. So we're going to say our type is secretary. Remember, your class types, your class names can be types. Just like int, just like float, just like string. Alright, here we're going to provide a secretary. And again, the name that I use here, the only thing it is the name of the secretary according to the manager, the way he thinks about it. Okay? Whenever he thinks, okay, I need to go to this person. Okay? It's not really their name, it's just, where that name is going to be stored. Okay, it's a parameter, and we're just saying that inside of this method, if we're going to access this information that was passed inside of here, we're going to refer to it as this name inside of the method. Hopefully when we start doing it, it'll make a little bit more sense if it doesn't already. And we'll call this past secretary. And the reason I call it past is because it's the secretary that was passed to him or her inside of this method. Okay? Alright, so setting this guy up is finished. So now, the next step you should do after you do your classes, you should outline what the classes actually do and what the methods actually do. So inside of compile a packet, we have parameter green box and blue box. And what did we say? We said that the only thing that compile a packet does is it accepts these two parameters, green box and blue box. It adds those two parameters together and stores them in the field folder. So it adds them together, stores the result in this. So we can safely assume that this is what we're changing. Right now it doesn't hold any information. We want it to hold information, so this is what we're changing. So when we're changing fields, we use assignments. Save, I don't know, blah, 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 go away. So what we're going to access is this field. Excuse me. And remember, when we're accessing a field on an object, from inside of that object, we use the this keyword. So he says, okay, or she says, okay, so my folder, I want to change that to this plus this. So I say this dot folder, because again, she's accessing her folder field. Okay, so you want to say this. Anytime we access fields or methods, we have to use dot notation. If we use this, we're accessing the field or the method from inside of that object. Alright, so we're going to set this dot folder equal to green box plus blue box. And here we don't use this. We don't use dot notation when we're accessing local variables, which we haven't really used for since last year, or parameters. If you're trying to access a parameter, you don't use dot notation. You just say the name that's up here, the one that you assigned in the UML. So this folder is going to be equal to whatever this information is plus whatever this information is. It's going to be permanently stored here. Okay. So now we go to the manager. And the reason I'm going to the manager now is because this is finished. This is the only thing she needed to know how to do, and this accomplishes that task. Alright. What is the manager going to do? He needs to know the secretary to retrieve the packet from. On retrieve packet, he will then make his folder be filled with whatever the folder that the secretary possesses. All of that information is going to go in his folder. So he's grabbing her folder and putting it on his desk. Alright, so to do that, we'll go to the manager, retrieve packet. Okay, so the secretary, he's going to be passed a secretary, and we know that the secretary has a field called folder, and that's what he wants. He wants to take the folder from the secretary and set the data that's inside of that equal to his folder. So what are we changing? Are we changing the past secretary? Are we changing her fields? No. We're changing this field. Right now it's empty. We're changing it to hold data. So when we use our assignment, we're going to change this. So the manager says, okay, the folder on my desk, I'm going to set that equal to the folder that this person has. So this folder, my folder, is going to be equal to whoever you told me to retrieve the packet from. That folder that she has on her desk, I'm going to take that and stick it on my desk. And that accomplishes exactly what we wanted the manager to do. Now we set up the program. So we have our manager plan as far as what a manager should be able to do. Pretty simple job. It probably gets paid about $30 an hour for it. And then we have a secretary, and her job as well is pretty simple. But these, again, are just job descriptions. We haven't actually put anyone in these positions yet. We haven't hired anyone. We can't tell, hey, secretary, do this. It's pretty rude. We call people by name. When you talk to your friend and say, hey, Manuel, let me borrow a pencil. You say his name, and let me borrow a pencil is a command or a request that he understands. Okay? And we do it the same way here. The first thing we need to do is create instances or objects from these classes. We have a secretary and a manager class. Now we need to hire people. You got to think of that. If you need to, think of it that way. We're going to hire people in those positions. So we're going to make Bob our manager. So Bob is our new manager. And that's why I worded it in the Photoshop presentation that Anne is going to be our new secretary. So now we can tell Anne to do things, and we can tell Bob to do things too. Alright, so let's tell Anne, hey Anne, I want you, no. If you ever see this come up in object-oriented mode, it means you just made a mistake. Hit no. This is causing a lot of you guys to have those bugs. No. Alright, so Anne, I want you to compile a packet. And okay, she says, okay, I need these two pieces of information. Those, when you see green box and blue box down here, the only thing that means is that she's expecting something here, and she knows it as green box. The second piece of information you provide her, she knows that information as blue box. She's going to do something with green box and blue box. Okay? We, as the people who programmed this, know that those are expecting strings. So let's give the first one a string and the second one a string. So it's going to take this information and put it into the green box. It's going to take this information and put it into the blue box. So once we tell Anne to compile the packet, she says, okay, I'm going to take whatever's here, so that would be this folder equals green box Christopher plus blue box Dillard. So now this dot folder is going to be Christopher Dillard, no space. So once we do that, we can tell Bob to retrieve the packet. And he says, okay, you need to provide me something. I refer to this information that you're passing me as past secretary. You don't need to worry about what this is called here. This is just like a reminder to remind you what it's expecting. Okay? That's why you want to name these like this. Past secretary tells me, okay, well, this is expecting a secretary then. Okay? And you say past pizza. Well, then you know that that's expecting a pizza. Past waiter. You know that Whenever you see this down here, okay, well that means I need to provide a waiter. So here, we're going to give access to the only secretary that we have available to us inside of main, Anne. If I can spell Anne, evidently. Alright, so retrieve the packet. Okay, retrieve the packet from who? Anne. Alright, so now if we run this and go through it again, evidently, we can look over here and see that, okay, we have Anne. This is her object reference. We can look down here, match that up, and see that Anne's a secretary. We see Bob, his object reference number. We can see that he's a manager. And then we can drop these down. Let me scoot this over. And we can see that the secretary's folder is equal to Christopher Dillard. The manager's folder is equal to Christopher Dillard because he retrieved that folder. So hopefully this cleared up a little bit of the what and the why and what some of these things mean. Remember, whenever you're setting your parameters, the only thing you're doing is making a spot to pass data into this. And why would you want to pass data? Because this method needs some information from an outside source. What information does it need? Well, that's what you say here. Whenever you tell this secretary to compile a packet, she's going to need two pieces of information in order to do it. And then, whenever you call this method, compile a packet, you just provide the information that it's expecting. Now, if you get this error, and I went over this in class, but I'll go over it again. If you get this error that says cannot find method compile a packet with one parameter in class secretary, this is not saying I can't find this method. It's saying I can't find this method accepting one parameter. Here, I'm providing one parameter. It says, wait, I can't find this method with one parameter. I can find this method with two parameters, but if you only provide me one, or you provide me with a number here that doesn't match the number that I'm expecting, I can't do what you want me to do. Alright, thanks for watching. Hope this cleared things up. Have a nice night.